Hello everyone, this is your friend Shinobi Nexus 2.0. Welcome back to the channel. Enjoy the fanfic. And let's begin. Part 7. When autumn winds blow. Not one leaf remains. The way it was. Togyu. After the curse mark induced anger faded, Sasuke looked the most disturbed of all of us at his actions. I had no idea what had happened in the fight after I'd been knocked out, but knowing Orochimaru, it couldn't have been kind. He'd wandered away from the group, sitting at the edges of the clearing, alone. What kind of monster am I? Sasuke muttered, staring at his hand. He looked so lost, young and old and tired at the same time. I was tired too. I didn't want to have to play therapist right now. I just wanted to sleep. But it looked like I'd have to. You're not a monster, Sasuke, I said, sitting down next to him. I covered his hand with my own. Orochimaru poisoned you. Some kind of snake venom, I guess. I'm not an expert on poisons, but they can have all kinds of effects. Hallucinations, emotional imbalance, paranoia, panic, fear, anger. It was a lie, but a reasonable one. I could recognize the curse mark as a seal, but no one would expect me to know more than that. I pulled the small pill bottle out of my med kit and handed it to him. Anti-venom, I explained. I gave one to you before, but until we see a medic I think you should take one each day. They might not affect the curse mark, but they would remind him that he was sick. That Orochimaru had done something to him. There might be a placebo effect, as well, and those couldn't be discounted. He took the bottle numbly. I didn't feel weak. I felt strong. So powerful, he said it was a gift. I thought, that I'm an Avenger. To follow my path, I must have power, at any price even if it means being consumed by evil. He glanced up at me through the veil of his hair. If I was stronger, if I was more powerful, this wouldn't have happened. Shit. This needs to be nipped in the bud. Now. It isn't power that's your problem, Sasuke. Power comes easy, it's knowing when and how to use it. You've already seen that, haven't you? I squeezed his hand roaringly. If you don't use it, it's useless. But if it uses you, that's even worse. I hoped I got through to him. I wasn't at my best. I couldn't dream up compelling arguments. I wished Naruto was awake. I'm sorry, he blurted out. It's okay. No, it's not. It's really not. I hurt you. I would have hurt Ino. And, before, you fought and I did nothing. His hands clenched in shame. I was weak. I was scared. All I could think about was that man and how, if I died there I'd never get to fight him. I was scared too, I admitted, my voice sounding distant even to me. I knew we didn't stand a chance, right from the moment he attacked us, from the moment I felt his chakra. Then how could you do it? Sasuke asked, voice sounding anguished. How could you just attack? I couldn't, at first. I was scared stiff. Then, he was going to kill us. If it had just been me, by myself, well, he probably wouldn't have attacked me. But that wasn't what Sasuke needed to hear. I probably couldn't have done it. But he was going to hurt you, and then Naruto, and there wasn't even a choice anymore. I smirked, half-heartedly. It's like Haku said, when you're protecting something precious. That's when you become truly strong, Sasuke finished. There wasn't even a choice, he repeated. Like, your body just moves on its own. That was how he had explained saving Naruto, way back there on the bridge. My body just moved on its own. We're a team, I said. That's what it means. You fight when I can't and I fight when you can't. And when we can, when all three of us can fight together, no one will stand a chance. He smirked half-heartedly back at me, recognizing my attempt to lighten the mood. Cheer him up, motivate him, whatever I was trying to do. I sighed, leaning into him. If the poison is in your chakra system, you should probably avoid using chakra, I mumbled, eyelids sliding shut against my will. They were just so heavy. Stop it spreading. There was more I wanted to say. Is she asleep? I heard Shika ask distantly. I tried to fight my eyelids, to see what he wanted, but they were too heavy, and the sunlight was so warm, he could wait, couldn't he? Yeah, I think so, Sasuke replied, sounding just as far away. I struggled to come back to awareness. Good, because I have some things to say to you. Shikamaru's voice sounded funny, more like Dad when he was truly serious. Flat and a little grim, it was a tone of voice that always made me remember that he was a shinobi, a good one, and not just my lazy, slightly goofy father. For a second, just a second, I had a flash of an older Shikamaru, cigarette dangling from his fingers and world-weary eyes. I gave up the fight and drifted off to sleep. When I blinked awake, I felt even worse than before. I felt stiff and gummy to add to all my other aches and pains. My mouth was dry and tasted of ash and my eyes ached at the brightness of the light. It was about noon, so I hadn't been sleeping long, but it looked like Team 10 had been busy. The giant bonfire had been put out and my field of death had been mostly dismantled. The bodies were stacked off to the side, and probably stripped of all useful equipment. Looking at them made me feel strange, weirdly empty, like I should be feeling guilty but wasn't, so I glanced away. "'Bout time you woke up," Ino said playfully, hands on. "Leaving us to do all the hard work. HMPH. Her cheerfulness sounded a little forced, and she was so pointedly ignoring the bodies that it was obvious. I cracked a smile, then winced as it pulled at my raw cheek. "Well, I figured you guys didn't have anything else to do." She examined me critically. "You are such a mess right now. I don't even know where to start. Help me bind my ribs," I asked. Every time I bent or twisted, they complained, so if we were going to be moving they needed to be dealt with. Ino's eyes flickered over my shoulder, just briefly. "Sure. You've got bandages." I nodded. "In my backpack. I'll grab it," she said decisively. "You just stay here." I watched her go, then turned slightly to see what she had looked at. Shikamaru and Sasuke were in the process of dismantling another trap, winding ninja wire and sorting through a ridiculously large pile of kunai. I might have overdone it a bit, there. Shika must have sensed I was looking, because he looked up and casually waved his hand in a lazy greeting. Sasuke peered around, caught my eye and then, flinched. Interesting. There was relief in his body language, but the set of his shoulders spoke of wariness. Not quite fear but certainly apprehension. And he didn't turn away from Shikamaru. "What, exactly, did you say to him, brother dear?" I wondered. I was sure I remembered the beginning of a conversation, though it was blurred enough that it could have been a dream. It took a lot to get Shikamaru to initiate a conversation. "I've got your stuff," Ino announced brightly, flouncing back across the clearing, backpack in hand. "Come on." She dragged me off into the trees, far enough away that we had some privacy, but still within shouting distance. With her help, I managed to get bandages wrapped tightly around my torso, the pressure counteracting the weird shifting, unstable feeling. I had delightful purple bruises practically everywhere it seemed. "I feel like a grape," I muttered in disgust. Ino snorted. "Well, you look more like a panda," she joked. "You've got such a lovely pair of black eyes." "Broke my nose," I explained. Which had probably burst the blood vessels around the bridge of my nose, explaining the bruising. "Seriously, what the hell happened to you guys? You're a mess." And Sasuke and Naruto were both out of it. She trailed off at the mention of just how out of it Sasuke had been. "I'll explain later," I brushed her off. "I don't want to have to go over it more than once." "You better," she said meanly, dabbing a wet cloth at my face. I hissed as it stung. "We haven't been able to wake Naruto up at all and Sasuke hasn't said 2 words since you fell asleep on him." "Lucky girl," she added enviously. "That was forced, too." Ino, I realized, was really scared. "That makes 2 of us." "You won't believe it," I muttered, then forced my mind away from the issue. So you never said what scroll you guys started with. Ino hesitated for a second. Earth. We haven't had any luck finding a second scroll, but it's only the second day. I blinked. I'm pretty sure that Sound Team had a heaven scroll. And we've already got our two. You said that before. Ino shrugged. We just weren't sure if you were, with it. You seemed pretty dazed. I couldn't help but smirk. I probably wasn't, I acknowledged. But our chances of getting to the tower like this. I, for one, totally can't wait to get out of this forest, Ino agreed. But you best make a team decision on that one, yeah. I shrugged. I couldn't really foresee any arguing on this one. Okay. That's as best as I can clean you up. She winced in sympathy. That's probably going to scar really badly. Without a mirror, I couldn't tell how bad it was, but it was pretty painful. My fingers flowed through the hand seals. Mystical palm jutsu. Green light gathered in my hands and I held it to my face, coaxing the tissue to heal. I didn't manage to completely heal it before the jutsu started fading and I pulled it away to quickly flush the worst of my other injuries. Okay. So focusing on my face first was kinda vain. Ino nodded approvingly. You look less like an extra from a horror movie now, she commented. I snorted. Come on. Let's get back to the boys before they burn the forest down, or something. Who was the one that started the bonfire? Ino shot back at me, helping pack up the stuff we'd used. Pshaw. I had that perfectly under control. Ooh. Right. I believe you. The tone of her voice said she clearly didn't. I couldn't help but smile at the easy banter. Ino was Ino, scared, horrified or whatever. I was really, truly grateful. So what's the plan? I asked, coming back into the clearing. That depends, Shikamaru drawled. His eyes were essing, nothing like his normal blank, indifferent gaze. On whether you're capable of moving. Not fast, I admitted. And if Naruto doesn't wake. Yeah, Shika sighed, hands clasping together. This is such a drag. I think we should call a truce and stick together, I volunteered. If we move soon, we should be able to get to the tower before nightfall. Then we'd be safe to recover instead of wasting time here. Sasuke frowned, but didn't object. I was injured, he was potentially chakra deprived and Naruto was unconscious still. Sasuke. Shikako. A voice yelped, and Naruto came tumbling out of the cavern, then stood blinking stupidly in the sunlight. Hey, whoops. Or maybe not so unconscious. I grinned. Oh, man, what happened here? Did that crazy snake lady do this? Naruto blinked at the clearing. Something like that. I bit back my automatic response. In the spirit of team trust and unity, I'd probably have to tell them. I just wasn't looking forward to it. These guys attacked us while you and Sasuke were having your beauty sleep, I teased. It's lucky your brother's team was here then, Sasuke observed quietly. Otherwise we could have been in trouble. I blinked. Oh, Team 10 had been here when he had woken up, hadn't they? So, Sasuke thought. They didn't get here till after, I said casually, glancing away from him. Sasuke's eyes widened. That was the only hint of shock that he allowed to show on his face. Huh, then what happened here? Naruto asked cluelessly. If we were out of it and they weren't here, he trailed off. I nodded. I killed them, I admitted. We'd fought on the bridge, even possibly killed people, but it had been too rushed to know which hits were fatal and which weren't. I suspected Sensei and Zabuza had done most of the actual killing then. That meant that this was the first time we had been faced with bodies we knew one of us had killed. They said they were sent by Orochimaru, I continued as the silence stretched out. I didn't look at either of them. I didn't want to see their expressions. It was hard enough to know that they knew. To kill Sasuke. What? Sasuke asked. Whoa, wait, hold up. Ino cut in, waving her arms. Orochimaru. Where does he come in? It was clear that she recognized the name. That was to be expected. Ino was the daughter of the previous head of the intelligence division. That was the name of the guy who attacked us, Sasuke said. I wasn't sure whether he recognized the name or not. Shikamaru was staring at us in horror. Was it? Really? I nodded. Yeah, he was throwing A-rank jutsu around like candy. Without seals. I couldn't even do the replacement technique without seals. Why would he be here in the Chunin exams? Ino demanded. This isn't he. I don't get it, Naruto complained. Who's Orochimaru? An S-ranked missing nin from Konoha, Shika replied quietly. A really dangerous enemy of the village. You three are lucky to be alive. I think he was after Sasuke. The fact that we survived seems to say that he has some kind of plan, I said. Sasuke. Did he say anything to you? Just about my Sharingan, Sasuke said slowly. I wasn't really listening to him. Apparently Sasuke's will to fight had come back with a vengeance after the two of us had been knocked out. I'd sort of seen the results of that, when I'd been trying to get the two of them to safety, but I'd had more pressing things to worry about at the time. Team 10 listened to the story in a kind of disbelieving horror, as the three of us filled in our own parts of the story. Apparently Naruto really had been eaten by a giant snake. Go figure. Oh, man, Shika groaned. And I thought the hardest part of this exam was supposed to be the other genin. Choji was frozen, a handful of sea halfway to his mouth. He's gone, though, right? He's not coming back or anything. I felt a flash of sheer terror at the idea, and I'm sure that Sasuke wasn't any better off. I swallowed. Probably. I offered weakly. We had no proof either way, and no reason to believe we were safe. Let's get to the tower, Naruto said, looking nervous. He hadn't been around for much of the fight, but enough to know we didn't want to go through that again. Ino smiled weakly. I never thought I'd agree with Naruto, but that sounds like a plan to me. Okay. Sasuke nodded. Let's pack up and move out. We burst into a flurry of activity, gathering scattered items and shoving them hastily in our bags. We all double-checked that we had our scrolls and exchanged nervous glances. All of a sudden it felt like we had a much greater reason to get to the tower as fast as possible. Here, I'll help you, Sasuke said quietly, sliding up beside me. His eyes were dark and shadowed. It probably wouldn't make us move any faster, and my ribs twinged at the movement, but I slung an arm over his shoulder. It wasn't about that. We'll help each other hobble there, I said. I'm sorry. I forgive you. The path to the tower was pretty long. We had to stick to the ground. Tree jumping was out of the question for Sasuke and I. Ino and I were on sensory duty, keeping lookout for traps and ambushes. Chakra sensing was one of the skills of the Yamanaka clan, though I'd never tested myself against Ino to see how we compared. Added to that, she was naturally sharp and good at picking out details that didn't belong. We had to detour several times to avoid running into other teams, but the increased travel time was regarded as being worth not fighting. Granted, there were twice as many of us as them, but two of us wouldn't be much help, and Team 10 wasn't exactly the strongest team combat-wise. At one point, we came across the body of a girl, laid out in a small clearing, that looked like she had been mauled by a wild animal. Trap, Sasuke suggested quietly. I shook my head. I can't sense any chakra. If it's a trap, it's a good one. Stay alert, Shikamaru said. We crept forward, an ungainly procession. She didn't look any older than us, with red hair and dirt-encrusted clothing. I said, spotting her headband. After Orochimaru, that symbol left a foul taste in my mouth. Were they working with him, or merely more victims? Choji sighed. This exam is really. Yeah, Ino said somberly. Nothing we can do, Shikamaru said, running a hand over his hair. Let's keep going. There were other bodies too. A team of Konoha genin peppered with kunai near some abandoned, but still loaded, spring launcher traps. The remains of an arm that looked like it had been torn off its body. A team floating face down in the river. Glad we didn't drink from that, I muttered. Sure, it was a bit of a tasteless comment, but the grim atmosphere was grating on my nerves. Blech, Naruto replied, screwing his face up. That's so gross. UGK, you're right, Ino said. Please tell me we don't have to swim through that. She glanced at Shikamaru like she was daring him to say otherwise. He shrugged. There isn't really much of an option. We've been circling around to find a spot we can pee through for the last kilometer. I had hoped we could go straight up the river, but it looks like someone has already thought of that. Still, the other side of the river might not be any better. I considered too. Hey Naruto, do you think you have enough chakra for a hidden in the mist jutsu? A really big one. Sure. No problem. How big do you want it? He asked eagerly. Do you remember where those two trees that formed that kind of archway were? Think you can make it all the way to there? If we could block sight for that distance, then sneaking through the gaps between two of the ambushes would be much easier. Yeah, I think so. But, I never managed to get that sensing thing done, he shuffled. That's okay. If we all stick close together, I can guide us through, I urged him. Hidden in the mist jutsu? Shikamaru asked, shoving his hands in his pockets and slouching. Just watch, I said. Naruto's chakra spiked and grew. And grew and grew. The water started rising off the river, almost like it was steaming. It condensed and then started spreading out, engulfing us, then the trees and then further and further. I could feel the wave of his chakra carrying the mist away. He stopped, panting, and opened his eyes. Oh, he said, disappointed. I was trying to make it thicker than that. He flexed his fingers, uncertainly. My chakra is all weird. I cursed myself for an idiot and exchanged alarmed glances with Sasuke. Damn, Orochimaru did something to your chakra system. That's what knocked you out. It must have done other things, too. How could I have overlooked that? Naruto smiled widely, but it looked a bit forced. Hey, don't worry, I'm an awesome ninja, I can handle it. We'll get someone to look at you when we get to the tower, too, I promised. We better move quickly, Sasuke said. Before the mist fades. Right, I said, nodding. Everyone, stick close. I moved forwards, trusting my memory and sensory abilities to help navigate a safe path. If we'd been moving faster, it would have been more difficult, but circumstances were forcing us to move slowly, anyway. I gave one spot a particularly wide berth, because I felt the sharp metallic tang of chakra, like the glint of a knife, like the iron in blood, that I was positive was Kabuto. No need for more trouble. The mist was plenty thick, even this far out from the river, that we had no trouble. Given the nature of the forest of death, no one could be quite sure it wasn't natural, but everyone was primed for an attack as it covered them, letting us slip past uncontested. There were a few close calls, and Naruto once sent a pair of shadow clones off to create a diversion, but we got through. Almost exactly 24 hours, Shikamaru said, cracking his neck. Not bad. Hardly breaking any records, I replied. But considering the circumstances. Hesitantly, Naruto and Choji taking point, we entered one of the rooms. They were huge, and empty. Alright, now what? Naruto asked expectantly. The only thing that really stood out in the room was the huge scroll on the back wall. If qualities of heaven are your desire, acquire wisdom to take your mind higher, I read out. If qualities of earth are what you lack, train your body and prepare to attack. When heaven and earth are open together, the peerless path will be righteous forever. This is the secret way that guides us from this place today. What on earth does that even mean? Naruto asked, flailing his arms around. The scrolls, Shika answered with a yawn. Heaven and earth representing mental and physical energy. Together they make chakra, so, if we put the scrolls together, we get something. Didn't they tell us not to open them? Ino asked hesitantly. I closed my eyes and recited from memory. But most importantly, none of you, absolutely none of you, may look at the contents of the scroll until you reach the tower. Which implies that once we're at the tower, they're fair game, Shikamaru finished. If Shikamaru says so, Choji said, shrugging and opening a new bag of potato circa. Choji's faith was simple and absolute. If Shikamaru said it was true, it must be true. Ino sighed. Alright, you better not be getting us disqualified, she threatened. I squirmed an arm around to retrieve the scroll from my inner jacket pocket. Open them at the same time, I suggested. Sasuke took it from me, since I didn't have two hands to open it with, but without actually letting me go. I wondered if he realized that it wasn't my legs that were injured. I could stand perfectly fine on my own. Naruto? Sasuke asked, grasping the edges of the scroll. Naruto nodded firmly. Ready. They pulled them open. The contents were simple. The kanji for person, Hito, was scrawled in the middle of a ceiling circle. Interesting. This is a summoning jutsu, Sasuke shouted. Quick! Get rid of the scrolls. Unerringly, he threw the scroll away, Naruto's following in its path a second later. Out of the corner of my eye, I could see Choji and Ino doing the same. Summoning people wasn't done very often. The person being summoned would need to have a complementary seal that would activate and drag them to the scrolls. Added to that, they were complicated, took a fair amount of chakra and didn't have that much of a range. It was flashy, but not very practical. Chakra smoke exploded from the two sets of scrolls, nearly simultaneously. I felt the surge in chakra as two new signals appeared in the room. Hey, long time, no see, Iruka-sensei said. Two at once, huh? The other Chunin said. Katetsu, I think his name was. Well, it's not against the rules, but you aren't making things easy for yourselves, you know. Iruka-sensei's gaze drifted over all of us, lingering the longest on me. I guess that was fair, since I was the most beat up looking. Looks like you've gone through a lot in this test, he said. Hey, wait, Naruto exclaimed. What's the deal with the surprise entrance? Why did you appear with the summoning? Well, at the end of the second test, we Chunin are given the important task of welcoming the test takers back. My being here, that's just luck. Luck, the other Chunin coughed. Not like you've been greeting every incoming team on the off chance. Iruka-sensei glared at him, rubbing the scar across his nose. You didn't have to say that, you know, he complained. Every team, Shikamaru drawled. So others have completed the test already. That's right, Katetsu confirmed. There are two teams already here. He flicked a glance at Iruka. Do you wanna give the speech to both of them? There's not really any point in me repeating it all. Sure, Iruka-sensei agreed. You can go back to slacking off and doing nothing. There was a twist of annoyance to his words. Katetsu vanished with a jaunty wave and a burst of body flicker speed. That's my kinda job, I heard Shika mumble under his breath. Congratulations, Iruka-sensei said, smiling at us all. You've ped the second exam. We ped? Naruto asked, disbelief coloring his voice. We ped. That's so cool. He leapt forward, glomping onto Iruka-sensei. Hey, wait, I'm not done, Iruka-sensei protested, trying to get him off. I snickered. Sasuke smirked. Idiot. Ino scolded. Get off him. What if there's something important we need to hear? Naruto dropped back to the ground, and rubbed the back of his head. Hee. Sorry Ino. I'm just so excited, you know. Iruka-sensei smiled. Well, I can see you're just as hyperactive as ever, Naruto. HMPH. No weird test or crazy snake guys are going to keep me down. Naruto said, thumb pointing to himself. Ahem. Right. Where was I? Iruka-sensei said. Just like the first exam, the second stage of the Chunin exams was supposed to test many different factors, your survival skills, your combat skills, your ability to find and retrieve specific items, but also to see if you could stick it out to complete a difficult mission. That's where the scrolls come in. Simply put, you knew that opening the scrolls was against the rules, and if you'd tried to open one, if a scroll was opened, we were ordered to knock out whoever opened it. Some ninja found that out the hard way. There was a flash of grim amusement in his tone. Actually, I'd been much happier believing there was a paralyzing seal written on the scrolls, considering who some of the genin in this test were. Then again, those capable of defeating an unexpected attack from a chunin probably wouldn't have opened the scrolls in the first place. So if we'd opened the scroll in the forest, you would have knocked us out. Naruto clarified. You'd have had to be pretty stupid to try that, Ino said with a huff. After all the fuss Anko made about it. She paused. You didn't try, did you? What? Naruto yelped. No way. That was the safest scroll in the whole forest, even from people peeking at it. Believe it. We believe you, I urged him. With Naruto, a little trust went a long way. Iruka-sensei was really smiling now. So did you six read the scroll on the wall there? These are instructions that the first Hokage recorded as principles that Chunin should follow. Yeah, but did he have to do it in rhyme? Shika complained. That just makes it even more troublesome. Heaven and earth representing mental and physical energy, like in chakra, Naruto paraphrased, nodding his head sagely. Iruka-sensei blinked in surprise. That's exactly right, Naruto. I'm surprised. Heaven stands for your mind, and earth for your body. I'll explain. If your weakness lies in your intellect, Naruto, you need to make doubly sure you work hard to remember all the important information and skills that you need to prepare for your missions. Okay. I get your point. Naruto crossed his arms and pouted. So if your weakness lies in your physical strength, Shikamaru, then you have to make sure you work on your physical conditioning every single day so it improves all the time. You sound like my mother, Shika complained, tucking his hands behind his head and staring at the ceiling. Iruka-sensei sighed theatrically. Well, I tried. So if your mind and body are working together as one, then even a very dangerous mission can become an easy one. The missing character is the one on the scrolls. It stands for person. It's meant to represent you genin. This exam was supposed to test your abilities as chunin and to see if you'd be any good at it. And, I have to say, you guys really did magnificently. A chunin is a leader, a guide. It's a chunin's responsibility to be aware of the strengths and weaknesses of those serving under them and to know what skills and training those ninja are going to need to succeed on a mission. You did an excellent job on your mission and I want you to remember these instructions on your next one. Well, that's it. That's everything I was supposed to say to you. He paused, and looked at us all for a long moment, indecision crossing his face. One more thing, for the third exam, don't push it too far. Especially you, Naruto. I worry. Naruto cut him off. Iruka-sensei. When I got this headband, I stopped being a student. So you don't need to worry about me anymore. I mean, this headband is proof that I'm a full-fledged ninja, right? You gave it to me. I may still be hyper, but I'm not a kid. Like you said, I got through the second exam and you just watch, I'm going to pee the third one for sure. I'm a ninja too. It seemed like everyone was standing a little straight, looking a little more focused. Ino had an odd, indecipherable look on her face as she watched him. Even Shika seemed a little more awake. Naruto. You're right. I'm sorry about that. I'm sure you'll do brilliantly, Iruka-sensei said. Now, the exam doesn't officially end until the 5 days are up, so you'll be staying in the tower until then. Unfortunately, his eyes flickered over me, and, interestingly, Sasuke. Until the test is officially over, you can't be seen to biomedic. If you do choose to, it may affect your ability to participate in the third exam, depending on what happens between now and the end of the exam. So they did know about Sasuke's curse mark. Shikako. Sasuke asked, hesitance in his voice. I knew what he was asking. My injuries are all superficial, I said. Well, to a certain extent, maybe, non-life threatening, would be a better way of putting it. How are you feeling? Sasuke was the one, poisoned, after all. That was more serious. He blinked. Fine for now. Naruto. Don't worry about me, Naruto exclaimed. I didn't even notice until I tried to use that jutsu. He grinned foxily. Alright, I'll show you the way to where the rest of the genin are staying, Iruka-sensei said. Follow me. Letting go doesn't mean giving up, but rather accepting that there are things that cannot be. Anon. Well, look who's here. Kiba greeted as Iruka-sensei let us loose in the tower with the admonishment that the top 3 levels were out of bounds. All 9 rookies made it through. That has to be a record. Man, you guys look beat. His gaze lingered over me. We ran into some trouble, I said lightly. So Team 8 is already here, Sasuke commented. We were the second team here, Kiba boasted. This kind of setup was pretty much the perfect mission for Team 8, track and retrieve. The real eyebrow raiser was that someone had beaten them here. Yeah, Shika asked lazily. When do you guys get in? Gaara, Naruto asked, frowning. Yeah, we ran into him before the exams even started. He shivered. So what's the deal with this place? Ino cut in. Please tell me there's a shower. And food. Choji chimed in. Kiba snorted. Yeah, what am I, a tour guide? Come on, I'll show you where we're staying. He turned and started walking, expecting us to follow. We didn't really have any better options. I get the feeling this place doesn't get used a lot, he continued. It's pretty empty, you know. Most of it is barracks and storage rooms and things like that. I'm pretty sure the upper levels are where the Chunin are working since we're not allowed up there. We haven't seen them since we got in either, except the guy that brings the food down. He knocked on one of the doors before opening it. Hey guys, you'll never guess what I found. Barracks was the right description for the place. Bunk room, as well. There were bunk beds covering 3 of the walls, at least 16 beds total, with a second door to the side that I suspected led to the bathroom. 3 of the lower bunks, more easily defendable, looked in use, so I suspected that was where Team 8 was sleeping. Naruto, Hinata said, surprised. And everyone else, of course. She bowed politely. Hey Hinata, Shino. I waved. You guys don't mind if we crash in your room, do you? Shino adjusted his glees. Is that wise? We are still rival competitors for this examination. Second exam is over, Shika pointed out, still looking like he didn't care one way or the other. For us, anyway. And the third exam doesn't start till later anyway. Why yes. Hinata shrunk back as her voice came out slightly too loud. I mean, if you want to stay here, there's plenty of space, isn't there? We don't mind. Thanks, Hinata, Naruto exclaimed, hands tucking behind his head. You're alright, you know that. Her cheeks went pink so fast. Ino gave her a knowing look. Sounds good to me. It'll give us a chance to catch up. Everyone's been so busy since graduation. Yeah, tell me about it, Kiba grumbled good-naturedly. If it isn't my mum, it's Kurenai-sensei, and if it isn't her, it's Hana. I'll do some training. Kiba, you're a real ninja now. Kiba, you can't just slack off anymore. He rolled his eyes. Hopefully this'll show them, right? Shikamaru flopped down on one of the bunks. It's just so troublesome, he complained. I snickered. Just think, I teased. If you don't make Chunin this time, you'll have to do it all over again. Ino snickered too. Hey, you'll probably end up like that Kabuto guy. How many was it? 8 times. Don't even joke about that, Shika muttered. I'll have nightmares about it. Same old Shikamaru, Naruto said. You're as lazy as ever. Sasuke, on the other hand, said nothing. He was still giving my brother a wary look. We settled in, joking and laughing, sharing anecdotes about what had happened since graduation. Team 8 hadn't heard about our C-turned-A rank, so Naruto got to retell the story, complete with arm gestures, much to Hinata's delight. It was loud and companionable and nice. Man, I'm getting hungry, Choji said. You said they had food here, right? Kiba rolled his eyes. Yeah, there's a kitchen upstairs that the Chunin keeps stocked with food. Bring some down for us, would you? Since we're playing gracious hosts and all. Choji was practically out the door already. Ino scampered after him. Oh no you don't. I know you, Choji, you'll just get fattening food. I'm coming too. Yes. Food. No more ration bars. Naruto exclaimed. Ooh. Maybe they have ramen. I hope that's not all he brings back, I said to Sasuke. He winced. Wait up, idiot, he barked. Sasuke was still moving stiffly, fist clenching every now and then as spasms of pain radiated from the curse mark. I watched him go in worry. I waited for my team to be out of earshot before I turned and pinned Shikamaru with a serious look. Shikamaru, I asked lightly. What exactly did you say to Sasuke? He rolled his head to look at me out of the corner of his eyes and sighed. It'd be troublesome, but you are my little sister. So, there are some things that aren't allowed to happen. I studied him for a while. It took a lot to rouse Shikamaru to action, but you never wanted to be his enemy when it did. You threatened him, didn't you? He shrugged and wouldn't answer any more questions. Shikamaru. He's about as threatening as Hinata. Kiba scoffed. Kiba? Hinata protested quietly, tapping her fingers together. I'm sure Shikamaru. She trailed off indecisively. Haven't you heard the saying? I grinned. The three things any Konoha nin fears: an angry Aburame, a focused Inuzuka, and a motivated Nara. Kiba barked a laugh. Yeah, I've heard that. But you're a Nara and you seem plenty motivated to me. Muffled thumps. Too heavy, too light as the bodies and heads fell separately to the ground. If my grin was a tad sharper, wilder, I couldn't help it. Best be scared, then, nay. As if, Kiba dismissed, but Shino was watching me closely. Shino, I knew, was very observant. What he was observing was up for debate. Why would he be threatening Sasuke anyway? I mean, I know the guy's a bit of a jerk, but it's not like that ever bothered you before. Shikamaru looked up. He broke her ribs, he said, clearly and carefully. Akamaru yipped. Kiba looked horrified. Inuzuka were loyal. Attacking a teammate was seriously against their beliefs. I winced. I'm pretty sure they were already broken before that, I said weakly. Yeah, it didn't sound like much of a defense to me either. There was a pause, and I was damn sure the Team 8 was reassessing my injuries. I sighed. Okay. Here's what happened. I wasn't sure whether telling them was the right thing to do, but on the other hand, there wasn't really a good reason to not tell them. Particularly if it would help warn them about what was to come. I told them about the Orochimaru fight, but skimmed very quickly over the sound team except for mentioning that he sent them. Then I told them about the curse mark, though I didn't use those words. You're serious? Kiba asked, breaking the silence when I'd finished. You're not just pulling our legs or something? I shook my head. Completely serious. I wouldn't joke about something like this. Shino adjusted his glees again, the only sign of discomfort he allowed himself. That is, disturbing news. One would think that the Anbu would move to prevent such a thing happening, or cease the Chunin exams while he was here. How can they? I replied. Doing something like that would just make Konoha seem weak to the other villages that are here. If we can't even defend ourselves from missing nin, I trailed off, leaving the thought open. I don't exactly agree with it, especially since he seems to be targeting my teammate, but stopping the Chunin exams would cause more problems than it would solve. Besides, we're only genin. They haven't invested that much into us. Damn, Kiba whistled. I know we're enemies for this exam and all, but if he pops up again, just say the word and we have your back. Thanks, Kiba, I said, caught off guard. Hinata nodded, as firm as I've ever seen her. Well, we can't let you hog all the good fights, he said. Me and Akamaru will show you how it's done, right boy? Akamaru barked. Tada! Naruto hollered, door banging open. We come bearing food. A lot of it, by the looks of things. Of course, with 9 people including Naruto, Kiba and Choji, we needed a lot of food. What's with the atmosphere? Sasuke asked, picking up on the heavy silence in the room. His dark eyes glanced over us all. I just told them about Orochimaru, I said as we set the food up to have a picnic in the middle of the floor. Is it true, Naruto? Hinata asked timidly. Did you really get attacked by him? Ah, well, I wasn't there for most of it, he admitted. But that's who they say he was. He waved his chopsticks vaguely in our direction. But I ain't scared of no weird snake guy, that's for sure. Next time he shows his ugly face, I'll kick his. She pinked again and looked down. I could practically hear her thinking, he's so brave. Hinata really was a cute kid. Nay, Hinata, I asked carefully. Do you think you could look at Sasuke's chakra for me later? I don't really know what Orochimaru did to poison him, but... She twisted her fingers in the hem of her jacket. Oh, of course, but I don't know how much help I could be, she agreed quietly. Maybe Shino could help too. The Aburame did work closely with chakra, though most people didn't expect it, since they fed their own to their Kikai instead of using it. But the mere fact that Kikai ate chakra forced them to know more about it than the average ninja, particularly how things could affect chakra, and how that could affect their bugs. If you don't mind, Shino, I agreed. Shino didn't have any objections, and after dinner had been cleared away we gathered around Sasuke to look at the curse mark. This is where he was bitten, I said, tracing my finger over the 2 puncture wounds in the curve of his neck. And this mark must have formed shortly afterwards. I think it might be some sort of seal. Hinata folded her hands into a seal and activated her Byakugan. She stared intently at his neck for a moment before speaking. I can see it, she said softly. There's a large M underneath the mark itself and it's spreading further. Like vines, or tendrils, she trembled slightly. The chakra is very dark. Almost corrupted. I blew out a sigh. Okay. Can you tell how far it's gone? It's definitely in the primary superficial subclavian chakra coil, maybe even the secondary subclavian coil. There are bits branching up the cervical coils, and towards the shoulder. So it was spreading pretty far, even without using it. I bit my lip. Maybe I can try and push it back, with my own chakra. Then we can see if we can block it off, stop it from spreading. Sasuke shifted. Why do I get the feeling I'm about to be used as an experiment? He asked. Hey, don't you trust us? I asked weakly. It's your choice, but I really don't like this stuff, it can't be good for you. I know, he admitted quietly. I don't like it either. I straightened my shoulders and gathered my chakra, sliding it into his coils like I was doing medical jutsu. Then jerked back and clamped a hand over my mouth and nose. GRK. I swallowed, convulsively, as my stomach tried to escape, an instinctive reaction to something so repulsive. Shikamaru asked warily, propping himself up on his shoulder from where he was lying on his bunk. I waved my hand at him. Okay, I mumbled, breathing in deeply. It just feels, really nasty. A rather extreme reaction, Shino noted. Hey, I'm a sensitive soul, I said, gathering myself to try again. This time, I resisted the instinctive urge to flinch away, battling through the nausea. It was easy, though, to tell which chakra was Sasuke's and which wasn't. It's moving back, Hinata confirmed quietly. Her hand reached out to trace a path against Sasuke's chest. There's a branch of it down this way, towards the heart. The heart was pretty important in chakra production, containing the 8th chakra gate. Sasori had, After all, been able to function as a puppet with only his heart remaining. Ah, sorry, Sasuke-san. Hinata jerked her hand back, flushing red and using an overly formal honorific to apologize. Don't worry about it, Sasuke said, uncomfortably. I mostly ignored them as I focused on shunting the corrupted chakra back to one spot. It didn't want to be returned, and it kept trying to escape my grasp. Its purpose was to try and spread through the body, and that was what it kept trying to do. It wasn't alive exactly, but all chakra has a mental component to it. Shino, I asked absently, do you think your Kikai could target one kind of chakra and not another? Shino considered. I could hear his hive buzzing. If the difference is as great as you implied, then yes, I suspect so, he said at length. Do you wish for me to attempt to remove the poison chakra? I don't know, I confessed, frowning as I tried to contain it. In a normal wound you would definitely attempt to draw out the poison before doing anything, so removing the excess chakra might make it weaker, but it might also stimulate it to produce more. I don't know enough to say. If there's a chance, Sasuke said. You should try it. Shino nodded. A few at first, then. Hinata, if you will watch to see how it responds. Oh, of course. She nodded. A few Kikai buzzed around the curse seal on Sasuke's neck. He flinched a little, but didn't react. Slowly, I felt the corrupted chakra drain, and I hastily tightened the net of my chakra holding it back. It seems to be weakening, I said. Hinata nodded in agreement. It also seems that Sasuke's chakra is pushing it back a bit, too, it's just that after fighting so much. My own chakra is depleted, he finished. So if I keep using chakra, it will grow stronger. He didn't look happy with the thought. Well, if it was a permanent state, that was akin to being crippled or worse. Once the exam is over we can get the medics to look at it or something, I said. They'll probably know what to do better than we do. Sorry, Hinata said timidly. I wish I could do more. It's not your fault, Sasuke said. I shouldn't have let myself get bitten in the first place. I winced. There wasn't really much Sasuke could have done to stop that either. Ah, Hinata, do you think it would be possible to put Jiyuken blocks in? The second I let go my chakra is just going to disperse. She considered the question seriously. Yes, I can put chakra blocks in here and here. The chakra going to your arm will be weaker, but not completely stopped. The chakra system was highly complex, with a lot of redundancies and double layers. There were about 3 or 4 different branches that lead into the arm, so blocking one wasn't going to immediately shut it down. Do it, Sasuke ordered firmly. Hinata's fingers stabbed into his shoulder sharply. I memorized the solidity of her chakra as it blocked off the pathways. The only other times I'd felt Jiyuken strikes, there had been too much pain OCIATED with it to care about how it was done. Sasuke hissed. I copied the feel of her chakra as much I could, disengaging and drawing back. Most of it dissolved almost immediately. The Hyuga probably underwent a lot of training to form their chakra like that in order to create plugs that wouldn't dissolve when contact was lost. Of course, even then they would be broken down naturally by the body in a matter of days. I sighed. That won't last forever, I said, flopping backwards. How do you feel? Sasuke frowned and rotated his shoulder around. Weird. Like there's something heavy attached to my neck. He paused. Cleaner. I didn't realize, until it was gone. It is unusual, Shino offered. I have never heard of anything like this before. He was really disquieted by all of this. I guess they all were. It was hard to consider that while I had been terrified of it happening, they had all been blindsided by it. While I was just feeling relief that it was over, they were all still trying to come to terms with it happening at all. You guys are really kind of amazing, Naruto said. He'd been watching us all crowd around Sasuke with an odd look in his eyes. Naruto hadn't even seen Sasuke under the influence of the mark. Like Team 8, He only had second-hand stories to go on. Thanks, Naruto, I said lethargically. Hinata practically glowed at the compliment. Even Shino looked pleased, if you looked closely enough. How are you feeling? I think we should leave yours until we can get someone to look at it. Unless it gets worse, I amended. He nodded vigorously. No, I'm fine. Believe it. He grinned a little too widely. Considering Orochimaru had hit him right over the Kyuubi seal, he probably didn't want anyone looking too closely. Which coincidentally, was why I wasn't demanding to investigate it. Man, what a day, Shikamaru drawled. I couldn't bring myself to disagree. The end of the exam took its time in arriving. At first we were glad for the chance to rest after the hectic rush of the forest, but boredom started to creep in. There wasn't much to do around the tower, and we tried to stay out of the way of the sand team as much as possible. Team Guy arrived late on the third day, but chose to bunk in one of the many other empty rooms. I was quietly glad about it, because every time he saw me Lee got twitchy and Neji was giving me considering looks that made me vaguely uncomfortable. Team Kabuto squeaked in just before the test ended and there was a flash of surprise and anger across his face when he caught sight of us already at the tower. Were you looking for us? I wondered silently. They called us to Emblé on the afternoon of the 5th day. The room we embled in was very large, with a small stage and a statue to one side of 2 hands in a seal, and 2 balconies running along the walls. The Hokage stood front and center while the exam proctors were arrayed beside him and our sensei aligned behind him. Kakashi sensei was there, with Guy and Kurenai and Asuma. Baki, the Sand Junin, was there. And another. The Junin was unfamiliar to me, a tall man with light brown hair, blue spandex drawn up around the sides of his face and square glees. But his chakra, oh, his chakra. Seems like someone wanted a front row seat. Just having him there made me break out into a cold sweat. Not giving away that I knew, not letting on, it took all my control. First of all, Anko said boldly. Congratulations on finishing the second exam. Now pay attention. Hokage-sama is going to explain the third exam to you. You better listen carefully, maggots. She added the last bit as almost an afterthought, like she couldn't bear to let us go without insulting us one more time. First, before I tell you what the third exam entails, I want to explain about the test itself. Why do you suppose our country holds these exams in conjunction with our allies? The Hokage asked rhetorically, puffing on his pipe. Because our enemies wouldn't show up. My snarky side wanted to interject. I squashed it, firmly. To raise the ability levels of the shinobi and increase friendship between allied nations to be sure, but it's important that you understand its true meaning. The exams are, so to speak, a representation of the battle between allied nations. If we look at our history, all the countries that we're currently allied with were once neighboring nations that continuously fought with each other for power. In order to avoid destroying each other's military strength meaninglessly, those nations picked champions to do battle on behalf of their countries at a mutually selected location. That was how the Chunin selection examinations originally began. There is no doubt that part of these exams is to select shinobi worthy of becoming Chunin, that's just not the whole story. These exams also allow for a place where shinobi can carry the pride of their nation on there and fight against other ninja for their very lives. Martial arts. He made it sound so elegant. I resisted the urge to curl my lip in disgust. Like we were thinking about national pride when we were trying not to die. Line up all your little soldiers, just to knock them down. Many leaders and people of prominence are invited from various countries to attend this exam as guests and also possibly to seek shinobi to work for them. This exam could determine the course of your ninja work from here on out. And more importantly, those rulers will watch your battles and take note of the skills that each ninja and each nation is developing. If there is a gap in power between countries, the strong nations are inundated with job requests for their ninja and conversely, requests to those deemed weak decline. Therefore, the stronger our nation is, the better our position when negotiating with neighboring countries. So it's important to show how much military strength our village has. That at least, I understood. We were advertising. We were promoting our nation as better than our competitors. It was a cruel, heartless way of doing it, and I wondered if the benefit was worth the loss of life that resulted from it. I knew at least one Konoha team had died in the forest, probably more. This exam is a chance for each nation to display the strength of its shinobi and thus the strength of the nation itself, and it's because it's an exam where your life is on the line that it has meaning. And it's for this very reason and for the strength of the nation that your forerunners fought in this exam. It's truly a dream worth striving for. It's traditional excuse. It was better than outright war, yes, but better didn't mean the best option. And I didn't consider that a dream worth striving for. Why did you say it was about international friendship before then? Tenten demanded. This is a custom where balance is preserved by fighting and dying, the Hokage replied. In the world of the shinobi, that is friendship. Sometimes it was easy to forget that the third Hokage was a war leader. This wasn't one of them. For all the complaints about Konoha being soft and the third Hokage being peace-loving, this was still a brutal, militaristic, war-torn place. The third exam is a fight for life, with the pride of your village and your own dreams at stake. The test is fine. Just tell me what the details of the exam are, already. I can handle anything you throw at me, Gaara said, voice barely louder than a whisper. He was clearly getting impatient with all the speeches. I had a fairly high tolerance for bullshit. A ninja landed, kneeling, in front of the Hokage with a burst of body flicker speed. Hokage-sama, before you do, please allow me, Hayate Gecko, proctor of the third exam, to speak first. So be it, the Hokage granted. It's nice to meet you all. Hayate coughed. There's something I would like all of you to do before the third exam. He looked tired, with dark bags etched deeply beneath his eyes. I wondered if his cough was a temporary condition or a pre-existing one. It was short and light, not the deep, phlegmy cough of pneumonia or bronchitis. I couldn't see anyone being on active duty if they had that kind of illness, anyway. We have to have a preliminary exam before we can move on to the real one. This is the first time in 5 years that there have been enough candidates finishing the second exam to require one. He coughed again. That was going to get annoying. Preliminaries? Shikamaru asked, sounding annoyed. Just what do you mean by that? The first and second exams might have been too easy, the proctor explained. The fact is, we never expected so many of you to still be here. According to the rules of the Chunin exams, a preliminary exam can be held at any stage in order to reduce the number of candidates remaining. It's just that, as Hokage-sama said, a lot of important guests will be watching, we can't afford to waste their time. They've come to see only the best. So if there are any of you that feel you are not in top physical condition, now's your chance to bow out. The preliminaries will be determined by one-on-one combat and they will be starting immediately. Sasuke twitched. I could feel the sudden pulse of chakra radiating from his curse mark, trying to break down the blocks Hinata and I had installed. His hand clenched shut against the pain. Against my will, my eyes darted towards the row of Junin. Orochimaru. Computer and video games. I reached forward, wrapping my fingers around Sasuke's wrist and channeling chakra up his arm, helping him fight the curse seal back down. Screw conserving energy for the exam. This was more important. There would be no luck in convincing Sasuke to quit, so all I could do was help him on forwards. Okay. You got me. I'm out, Kabuto said, raising his hand, sheepishly. I didn't buy it for a second. Kabuto. Naruto exclaimed. What are you doing? You can't quit now. I'm sorry, but my body is just too beat up, Kabuto said apologetically. I just can't hack it. Yeah, I didn't buy that either. The proctor waited to see if anyone else was going to quit, then shrugged. All right then. We will now begin the preliminary round. There are 17 of you remaining, so we will need 8 matches and one of you will gain AP. The surviving candidates from these matches will move on to the third exam. As for the rules, there are none. You will fight until one of you dies or concedes defeat or is rendered physically incapable of continuing. Naturally, those who are losing are encouraged to concede defeat to avoid a fatal outcome. Furthermore, as proctor, I'm given a certain amount of leeway in judging the matches. I might occasionally intervene if a match seems hopeless to save as many lives as possible. Everyone was starting to look eager now that the exam had been explained. Whether they liked it or not, we were about to fight, so everyone was slowly switching over into fight mode. The names of each pair of opponents are chosen completely at random. Hayate continued his spiel. Before each match, these names will appear on the display behind me. In a moment, the names of the first 2 opponents will appear. I didn't buy the random matchups explanation. If I was in charge, I'd want only the strongest competitors to get through. That would mean making a list of presumed strength and pairing people off strongest to weakest. That way, the strongest half would win and the weakest half would be removed from the exam. It wasn't exactly fair, but what was? The strongest apparent genin in the room would be Gaara, based on basic information. He was the son of the 4th Kazekage and holder of the Aikibi. And, crucially, able to use its power. The weakest, again at first glance, would be Lee. A non-clan shinobi, malformed chakra coils and unable to use ninjutsu or genjutsu. On paper he made the weakest shinobi in the group. That he wasn't was a tribute to his hard work. And since that was one of the matchups that I remembered clearly. The board flashed and blinked before settling onto 2 names. Sasuke Uchiha vs. Yoroi Akato. They didn't waste any time, Sasuke muttered. I drew in a deep breath and leaned closer. Be careful. Stick to taijutsu and weaponry. And, watch out, his chakra feels hungry. I gave him a troubled look. I got it, he urged me, jaw clenching. This is my fight now. Everyone other than the 2 opposing candidates will now clear the area and move to the upper level, the proctor ordered. I pulsed my chakra one last time, helping Sasuke fight off the curse mark, before disengaging. Almost immediately, he clenched his fist shut in pain. He nodded at me, and I stepped away, heading for the stairs. There was no more that I could do. Kakashi-sensei meandered over to us, stopping briefly behind Sasuke. I enhanced my hearing so I could listen in on what he was saying. Sasuke, he greeted. Don't use your Sharingan. So you know about it? Sasuke said, not sounding at all surprised. Whether because he thought they had to have noticed Orochimaru, or because of the slightly irrational belief that Sensei would always know, I couldn't tell. If that mark on your neck gets out of control, your life could be in danger, Sensei warned. I'm aware of that. Just to let you know, if it gets to that point, I'll have to step in and stop the fight. Good luck. Kakashi-sensei's parting comment was slightly sardonic. It was interesting how the groups had divided. Neither of the 2 platforms were any better than the other, running an equal distance along the walls on opposite sides of the room. And yet, one side held the Rookie 9 as well as Team Guy and the other held the Sand team and the other member of Kabuto's team. It was like the battle lines were already drawn. Kakashi-sensei, I greeted as he leant on the railings beside me. You won't believe what the forest was like, Naruto said, folding his arms. Sensei chuckled. I've heard a few stories, he said. And it looks like you've had it rough. I grimaced. Yeah, we got a little banged up. I couldn't help but touch fingertips to the still roughed up surface of my cheek. It looks like it's healing fine, Kakashi-sensei urged me. That's good, I agreed, leaning forward and resting my forehead against his bicep. My hand curled around his wrist, fingers touching the inside pulse point, out of sight. Otherwise I'd have to wear a mask like you, and then everyone will laugh at me. Junin. 30 degrees, 20 meters. Chakra is OROCHIMARU. I tapped out, my fingers moving the barest minimum distance to convey the message. Kakashi-sensei gave a huffing laugh, even as his arm muscles tightened beneath my grip like steel cable. Hey, I'm cool. He disengaged from me, hand going to my back to guide me away. Asuma, tell her I'm cool. Asuma-sensei was almost choking on his cigarette with laughter, and just casually glanced at Kakashi. I caught the fractional widening of his eyes when they fell on us. Whatever sign Sensei's hand was making on my back meant something. Well, I don't know, he stalled. What do you think, Kurenai? Kurenai chuckled. I think Guy is the expert there, don't you? It was very neat, how they were managing to pee the signal along, hidden behind mockery, bringing everyone's attention to Kakashi-sensei without alerting the others. Very neat indeed. My eternal rival is indeed most hip and cool. Guy enthused, even as he appeared behind us without a sound. Though perhaps it would not be quite so appropriate for you to emulate him in such a fashion. Naruto snickered. Yeah, that would just be too weird. I hummed in agreement, turning my attention back to the floor as Hayate called for the fight to begin. It opened with a few traditional volleys of kunai and shuriken, with Sasuke definitely acting more wary than he normally would. I could feel the pulsing of cursed chakra and knew that he was fighting a battle on two fronts. My hands clenched, white-knuckled around the railing. Orochimaru was just toying with him. But it wasn't until Yoroi started his chakra draining that I realized, with cold clarity, just how badly this fight could go. He's draining your chakra, weakening your resistance against the curse seal, forcing you to draw on its power. Maybe you should let that go, Naruto said nervously, eyeing my hands as the tortuous groan of metal filled the air. I blinked and looked down. Then, finger by finger, forced my hands to let go of the railing. It was a little warped. Oops, I said sheepishly, calming my agitated chakra. It had snuck into my hands without me realizing it, working off an unconscious desire to pummel someone. Sasuke will be fine, Naruto said. He's too strong to let a guy like that beat him. I think Kakashi-sensei was more surprised than I was. Naruto, admitting Sasuke was strong. Of course he will be, I agreed, just as, down below, Sasuke imitated the move that had led to Lee handing him his. After that, it was game over. Winner, Sasuke Uchiha, Hayate announced. I'll be right back, kids. Asuma, could you? Sensei murmured. Yeah, I'll watch out for them, Asuma-sensei agreed. You best get down there. Kakashi-sensei hummed before body flickering down to stand behind Sasuke. They had a short conversation, as the medics came to take Yoroi away. Sasuke glanced up at us. I smiled. Man, I hope Sensei knows how to get rid of that thing, Naruto said, as the two of them left. Yoroi's Junin-sensei, the one I knew was Orochimaru in disguise, followed them out, presumably to check on his student butt. Me too, I agreed. Let's move on to the second match, the proctor said quietly. The board flickered and eventually chose two more names. Kankuro vs. Masumi Tsurugi. That was the other member of Kabuto's team. There was no Tsurugi clan in Konoha, nor in Akado 1. They were both either orphans or from civilian families. That put their strength definitely at the bottom of the list. Kankuro was definitely at the top. It was easy to see who would win this match. My brow furrowed as I tried to construct a list of who would be fighting who. It wasn't quite as straightforward as it seemed. There had been exceptions to the strongest versus weakest rule, hadn't there? The kunoichi had been mostly paired off against each other. Sakura versus Ino and Temari versus Tenten. Yes, because she had lost terribly. Who had Hinata fought then? My eyes cast around the room. Neji. That was right. Because she had lost terribly too. After that, it was easy to see who would be fighting who. Naruto was the trickiest. I didn't know where he should fall on the list. By rights, he should be at the top with Gaara, for much the same reasons, but those reasons were secret, and Naruto didn't have nearly the control over his prisoner that Gaara did. If control was the right word. Naruto, I said, voice low, so as not to let everyone overhear, you'll probably be up against either Choji or Kiba. Start planning. He looked at me, wide-eyed. He didn't question how I knew which was both good and bad. Good because it meant he trusted me, bad because it meant he wasn't trying to work it out himself. What should I do? He asked, voice hushed. How's your chakra? It's a little weird, he confessed. I bit my lip. In normal circumstances, I'd say, turn it into a battle of attrition. A match of stamina. Just have them fighting clones until you exhaust them. But if your chakra isn't working right, you might not be able to do that. Their fighting styles both rely on being able to move, momentum and spinning. Bog them down, tie them up. How's your supply of ninja wire? Naruto didn't use ninja wire as much as Sasuke or I did, but being on our team meant he got a crash course in how great it could be. Martial arts. Naruto started grinning madly. Life was about to get very unpleasant for somebody. I know exactly what to do, he said. Because his opponent is unable to continue, the winner is Kankuro, Hayate said, calling the second match over. I nodded thoughtfully. It hadn't taken long at all. A simple replacement technique to switch with his puppet, and Masumi had been trapped before he'd even noticed. It was impressive that Kankuro could control his puppet without being able to see what was going on. That was something to watch out for. The third match. Temari vs. Tenten. Tenten walked down the balcony behind us. I paused a second, considering. She hadn't been at the impromptu information gathering session before the first exam. And well, Konoha ninjas should stick together. Be careful, I muttered loud enough for her to hear. She's a wind type. It was a bad match up for her. But if she knew ahead of time, well, she might not lose so badly. Her footsteps faltered briefly, and I knew she had heard me. I could only hope it helped. The match started badly. Tenten opened with a frankly uninspired barrage of shuriken and was shaken when they missed. That was her first mistake, letting her opponent get to her. It was easy to see that Tenten didn't have the ability to analyze an opponent's skills and then change her tactics on the fly. There was probably a reason she stuck to long range and let her teammates dictate strategy. But with prior warning, she did notice that her thrown weapons weren't getting through the shifting wind currents that Temari controlled and switched to taijutsu, proving that Maeda Guy trained no slackers. Her taijutsu skills were actually pretty good, but Temari wasn't lacking there, either. She could use her fan as a bludgeon and easily use a wind blast to push her opponent back and escape. Temari wasn't exactly pushed, but it wasn't the complete walkover it might have been. Winner. Temari. Hayate called out, then coughed. Temari was smirking, leaning on her fan. Chakra surged behind us, but a familiar pattern. He was back quickly. Kakashi-sensei. Naruto exclaimed. Where's Sasuke? I asked, tilting my head back to look at him. It was hard to tell, but Sensei looked a little disturbed. Oh, he's fine. Sleeping soundly in the infirmary. But he's been put under guard by the Anbu. That was actually a good thing, in my books. As long as the Anbu were there to keep Orochimaru away and not to make him a prisoner or anything. Although, Sensei hesitated. When you were in the forest, did he, you were attacked by a team of sound ninja, weren't you? How did he know about that? Sasuke could have told him, but if Sensei wanted to ask something about him, it was unlikely. The only other person would have been the one who sent them. Orochimaru, who had left the examination room shortly after Kakashi-sensei and Sasuke. Yeah, we were, I confirmed. Sensei looked at me directly. Did Sasuke kill them? No, I said honestly, flatly. Some of the tension drained out of his frame and I turned away. I did. Orochimaru, who had sent them, who had apparently discovered that they had been killed. Had he made the assumption that Sasuke had done it? That the curse mark was doing its job? Was that a good thing or a bad thing? There was a careful silence on the balcony. I didn't kid myself into thinking that the other Junin hadn't heard our conversation. Man, this test is such a drag, Shikamaru droned. Whether he'd done it on purpose or not, I was grateful all the same. Next match, Hayate called. Inuzuka Kiba vs Naruto Uzumaki. Finally, a chance to show what I've got. Naruto shouted excitedly. Yeah, hey Akamaru, I think you and I won the lottery. This is going to be cake. Kiba grinned, making his way towards the stairs. Akamaru barked in agreement. Hey, he's going to be surprised, Naruto boasted, before holding up a familiar canteen. Mind if I borrow this? He asked. I blinked, and glanced towards my backpack where it was leaning against the wall. Sure, I agreed readily enough, not quite sure what he wanted with it. He already had his own attached to belt. Help yourself. Sorry Kiba, Naruto said as they squared off on the floor. Don't take it personally if I blow you away. That's just what I was going to say. Only not so politely, Kiba growled back. Right Akamaru. When you're ready, Hayate said, moving back out of the way. Begin. Beast Mimicry. 4 legs Jutsu. Kiba's chakra spiked and he crouched down onto hands and feet. It was hard to see from such a distance, but he looked far more feral than before. Here I come. His speed was now comparable to Sasuke's or maybe mine when enhanced, I suspected, though it was hard to measure for sure. This was the Inuzuka Taijutsu. Feral and wild and very different from how humans normally fought. It was difficult to predict simply for that reason. It also used chakra to a large degree, meaning that it was pretty draining and I suspected Kiba would only be able to use it for short bursts. Though, if he got some good hits in, that might be all he needed. Who do you think will be victorious? Shino asked, glancing side-on at me. Hinata clutched the railings and peered down anxiously at the two fighters. Med. How likely is Kiba to take Naruto seriously? It looked like he wasn't really messing around that much, going straight into his family techniques. More so than before the forest, that's for sure, Shika said, leaning on the railings. Man, I wouldn't even want to face him now. The more seriously Kiba takes him, the better chance he has, I said. But, I shrugged, I'd be a poor teammate if I didn't back Naruto, nay. As would I, Shino acknowledged quietly. Kiba is not a pushover. Neither is Naruto. Not anymore. I shivered, just a little. But neither of them will be using life or death techniques. It isn't that sort of fight. Naruto wouldn't be pushed to using Kyuubi chakra. If he could even use it now, of course, he could still do plenty of damage without it. I watched idly as Kiba threw down some smoke bombs and attacked while sight was screened. I followed the fight with my chakra sense as Naruto started moving to try avoid Kiba's attacks. It wasn't completely successful, but it was a good effort, and he nearly cleared the smoke before Akamaru tackled him back into it. There was silence, then Kiba leapt clear of the smoke, eyeing it warily. It started to clear, slowly, revealing an orange body huddled on the ground. Akamaru sprinted out of the smoke cloud, back towards his partner. Yeah, way to go Akamaru, Kiba cheered, crouching down to pick him up. This fight is over. Then, Akamaru bit him. It was hard to say who was more shocked, the crowd, or Kiba. Idiot, I mumbled. If you were going to bite him, you should have bitten him somewhere it would matter. It was only on the arm, and his thick jacket pretty much negated the whole effect of it. Surprise, Naruto said, releasing the transformation jutsu with a cloud of smoke. Kiba shook him off and he backed up spitting. What? Where's Akamaru? Kiba asked. There was real worry in his voice. The Naruto that had been lying on the ground, stood, holding Akamaru by his front paws. Akamaru whined in shame. Wow, Ino said. Is that really Naruto? Who would have thought that Naruto would be a match for Kiba? To balance a transformation jutsu and a clone jutsu at the same time. Shika commented. That's kinda impressive. There's no way he should be able to do that. I blinked. Actually, it was. Now that I thought about it, I was still working on being able to do two jutsu at the same time. But Naruto played Shadow Clone Shogi with me, huh? I'd never even recognized that. Wadea no, Kiba said, grinning in feral relief. Got a little stronger, I see. But not nearly strong enough because now I'm going to get serious. Good, I was hoping you would because I want to seriously knock you out, Naruto shot back. I really wanted to tell him to stop playing around. Naruto, if I were you, I'd let Akamaru go. Kiba reached into his kunai pouch and pulled out something tiny. He flicked it towards Akamaru, who swallowed it. Akamaru's chakra blossomed and he began to grow. Larger and heavier, fur turning a dark red as he started to growl. He broke free of Naruto's grasp easily, dispersing the clone. What the heck happened? What was that thing you just fed him? Why did all his fur just turn red? Naruto asked, puzzled. Are you sure you want to stick around to find out? Kiba taunted, swallowing something himself. His chakra almost doubled. Soldier pills. No doubt about it. Beast mimicry. Beast human clone. The two of them changed, Kiba becoming even more feral than before. Akamaru was his matching double. We'll take you down in one hit. Kiba said. The two of them leapt forward and then began to spin. Fang over fang. The two of them rotated until it was like they were inside a drill, or a tornado. Interesting. They really are taking Naruto seriously to be using that already. Naruto seemed to recognize that he didn't want to hit by that. I felt the surge in chakra of a replacement technique just before Kiba hit, leaving behind a chakra construct shaped like a scarecrow, complete with X's for eyes and a sticking out tongue behind. Okay. So is it my turn now? Naruto asked, mockingly, from the other side of the room. Kiba and Akamaru spun around in shock to face him. Naruto was weighing the two water canteens in his hands, and with a casual flick he popped off the lids and threw them halfway across the room. Hidden in the mist jutsu. He called, hands flying through the seals. His chakra spiked and poured out. That was much more chakra than he normally used for that jutsu, but the mist came out thick. It covered almost the whole room, with only the barest amount of clear space around the walls. I remembered that he had had problems in the forest. Kakashi-sensei, I muttered. Orochimaru did something to Naruto's chakra system. I described the jutsu that he had used, as much as I had seen of it, and exactly where he had been hit. It's been causing problems with his chakra control since. Sensei's eye was slightly wider than normal. I'll get someone to look at it, after the preliminaries. URG. Naruto's voice came echoing from inside the mist. Smells like wet dog. Why you? There was an incoherent sound of pure rage. You think this is going to stop me? I can still smell you, you know. A Naruto landed on the wall, then another, and another. There were dozens of them, up the walls, over the ceiling, crouched on the balcony and rails. And all of them appeared to be holding wire. Inside the mist it must have been like a cat's cradle. Fang over fang. Kiba shouted again. Several of the Narutos were yanked forwards, then a few more, then others grunted and pulled backwards. Rather like they were fishermen reeling in a large one. Hey, what the? One Naruto jumped backwards out of the mist, standing in the tiny space clear of the mist. His face was very focused as he worked through a set of hand seals. Alright, eat this, Kiba. Lightning release. Radiating shockwave. It blasted out of him, scorching his hands from jutsu overload, but dancing through the mist. There were points where it sparked up impossibly bright, probably from the metal of ninja wire, and the clones all began to explode as the lightning was channeled down the wire into them. Radiating shockwave wasn't a huge jutsu, or a particularly long-range one. As the name suggested, it produced a wide wave of lightning that arced around the user. Using the mist and ninja wire to increase its range into an area of effect jutsu was a pretty clever combination. Kiba is down, I said, feeling his chakra stutter. Lightning jutsu often had the side effect of paralyzing the victim, and Kiba and Akamaru had basically taken that one full force. Naruto was panting, but didn't look particularly wounded or tired. The mist started to fade, creating puddles of water on the floor. That would be something to watch out for in later fights. Wet floors were often slippery. Kiba was tangled in lengths of ninja wire, twitching sporadically. Akamaru had dropped out of the clone jutsu and was back to being a small white puppy. But he was out of it too. Kiba Inuzuka is unable to continue. Winner is Naruto Uzumaki. I cheered. That was surprising, Choji said. It's hard to think that that's the same Naruto. Not that surprising, I said. It's been a hard couple of months. I bumped shoulders with Naruto as he rejoined us. Did you see that? He exclaimed. Was I awesome or what? Way to go, I congratulated. Kiba was a tough opponent, you know. We're all really surprised, Ino said. You're not the same kid from the academy, anymore. No way, and you better believe it. He grinned at her. Next match, Hayate called, catching our attention again. Shino Aburame vs. Choji Akamichi. Good luck, Choji, Shino, I said as they both made their way downstairs. They both nodded at each other, perfectly polite. Without name-calling to enrage him, Choji wasn't an aggressive soul, even though Asuma-sensei had bribed him with barbecue. And while Shino was perfectly willing to indulge in battle-based trash talk, commenting on someone's appearance was beneath him. He much preferred to state why his opponent's skill set was below his and why that meant they were going to lose. It was actually an interesting matchup. Akamichi naturally had large chakra reserves, quite apart from their stored excess, in order to use their expansion techniques. That meant that Shino's Kikai had a long way to go in order to drain Choji's chakra. Added to that, the spin of the human bullet tank prevented them from gaining much of a foothold. But Shino wasn't ruffled at all and was easily able to dodge the not very accurate rolling sphere. Without someone to slow his target for him, Choji simply couldn't hit it. In the end, Shino's slow and persistent method of increasing the number of Kikai on Choji depleted his chakra until he could no longer use jutsu. It was an almost anticlimactic fight, even though both of them gave it their best efforts. Winner, Shino Aburame, the proctor announced. Well, it was a good effort, Choji, Asuma-sensei said, laying a hand on his shoulder. Maybe next time. The next match will be, Hayate announced. Shikamaru Nara vs. Shikako Nara. I'd almost expected that, but it was still a punch in the gut. If the finals were to promote the village, they would want to show variety. Having two members from the same family would just be boring, particularly when Nara weren't known for our exciting combat styles. I glanced at Shikamaru. His grip was white-knuckled on the railing. Are you afraid of me, Shikamaru? The thought made me unbearably sad. It sat in the pit of my stomach like a heavy stone, closed my throat off, ached behind my eyes. Troublesome, he muttered. My thoughts raced. We could fight. Given how unmotivated Shikamaru was, I might even win. Of course, given how good Shika was at outmaneuvering people, the match might go in his favor. It was tough to say. I forfeit, I said, voice barely loud enough to be heard by the proctor. Shikamaru looked over at me and sighed. You really want to do that? He asked. I nodded. I forfeit, I repeated louder, voice surer. What's the point in that? Tamari scoffed from across the room, leaning on the rail, all casual arrogance. hanging in here to forfeit now. I shrugged. There are 2 people in this room that I would forfeit rather than fight. My brother just happens to be one of them. Your brother is the other, went unsaid. Naruto looked scandalized. You can't do that, he protested. Why are you just giving up? You used to kick his all the time at the academy. Think about it, I said lowly to him, as the proctor announced Shikamaru as the winner. It wasn't quiet enough to prevent those around me from hearing, but since it was only my team and Team 10, I didn't think that was an issue. Everyone here is watching. When it comes to the finals, they're going to have no idea how Shikamaru fights. That'll give him the advantage. You still could have won, Naruto argued stubbornly. Maybe, I said, maybe not, but he's my brother. A promotion, that's not a good enough reason to fight him. There might have been something approving about the glint in Kakashi's eye, but I could have been imagining it. That made him pause. Naruto didn't have family, but he regarded his friends highly. Of course, to him, not fighting them would have been more insulting, but he did understand in a way. I guess. Besides, I continued, if I forfeited, that just means the Shika has to become Chunin. Troublesome, my brother muttered. You had a better chance of getting through the finals than me. If you're really torn up about it, you can do my chores for me, I suggested. Not a chance, Shikamaru snorted. The next fight was where things started to get miserable. I wasn't pleased with having to forfeit, but it wasn't the end of the world. Not for me. Hinata Hyuga vs. Neji Hyuga. Watching Hinata and Neji fight was painful. Not just with the explosive discharges of chakra as their Jiyuken strikes clashed, but emotionally as well. I wanted to tell Hinata to forfeit, but at the same time I wanted to encourage her to stand up for herself. I wanted to tell her she was strong and didn't have to listen to him discourage her. I wanted to stop him hurting her. But Hinata kept standing up. You're wrong, Neji ni-san, she said, her voice carrying quiet conviction. Because these eyes can see that the one suffering here is you. Because Hinata thought it was worth it. It wasn't about the match. It wasn't about the exam anymore. It was about standing up to prove she could. I swallowed, my throat thick and bitter. Hinata, Naruto said, when she had to be carried off the floor on a stretcher, a growl in his voice. I promise, I will prove that people can change. I will beat Neji in your name. HMPH. Neji snorted, unimpressed. A failure will always be a failure. But if watching Neji and Hinata was hard, then watching Lee and Gaara was worse. Because, like Sasuke, Lee would never quit. And Gaara would never be pacified. I didn't want to watch. But I had to. If Gaara gave away anything that could help beat him, I had to see it. Lee was impressive once the weights came off. But it wasn't enough. Then he started opening the gates. The explosion of chakra as the limiters released made my breath catch in my throat. There was so much chakra it was visible. And yet, watching what it was doing to him made me glad that I had never pushed myself that far. And it still wasn't enough. He gave too much, too fast, and his body couldn't handle the strain. Like Hinata, Lee had to be carried out on a stretcher too. But Gaara walked off the floor under his own power. And with that match, the third exam preliminaries are now finished. The proctor coughed once more before calling all the winners, and Ino, who hadn't fought, down to the floor. The Hokage stepped forward. In the third exam you will all put your battle skills on display. You will demonstrate the power and control you have achieved in your respective disciplines. Accordingly, the third exam will be held 1 month from now in order to provide a suitable period of preparation. So now, all that remains to be done is to find out who your opponents will be. Everyone, Anko said, holding up a box and moving down the line. Take one piece of paper and tell us the number written on it. Ibiki will draw up a sheet of matches. Naruto vs. Neji. Sasuke vs. Gaara. Ino vs. Temari. Shino vs. Shikamaru. Kankuro. I stared at the matchups. That was familiar. Well, if they rigged the prelims, why wouldn't they rig the actual matches? There were bound to be ways to ensure Genin picked the right numbers. Naruto had already declared a grudge match against Neji, which was bound to provide interesting motivation, and everyone wanted to see Sasuke fight Gaara. Ino and Tamari fought it off as the two kunoichi to make it through. Shino, Shikamaru and Kankuro were all the more long-distance, strategic fighters. Pitting them all against each other made sense. Know your enemy and know yourself and you can fight 100 battles without disaster. Sun Tzu. The hospital was dark and mostly silent, but I awoke easily, sliding into wakefulness between one breath and the next. There was a dark shadow looming over me. Been working overtime? I asked, levering myself to sit up. The medics had knit my bones back together, but they were still soft and would easily rebreak. It would be at least a week before I'd be combat ready, though admittedly that was much sooner than the normal time frame for a broken bone to heal. Dad jerked. In the low light, I could barely see him, but he looked tired. Sorry, pet. Didn't mean to wake you. There was something in his hands and I squinted, making out the shape of a clipboard. It's just a broken arm and fractured ribs, I said, guessing what he was looking at. My medical report was missing from the slot on the foot of the bed. And this? He asked, tapping the bandages taped to the side of my face. Just a scrape, I said. The medics feel like they have to bandage everything. I won't even end up with cool scars like yours. He snorted. You're far too young and pretty for that. Mum had fussed much more when she had been here earlier, but Shika had told me about the look on her face when he'd shown up at home alone, so I hadn't protested. Do you know what happened? I asked. In the forest. He hummed. I've been working on it, he acknowledged. Which was probably as much information I was going to get about how much they knew about Orochimaru and what they were doing about it. I was going to get you to give a report tomorrow. I can give it to you now, I offered. Verbally. Anyway, I haven't got anything written up yet. That's fine, he said, dragging a chair over to the side of the bed. When you're ready. I took a moment to organize my thoughts. Then I began to speak. I recounted our movements in the Forest of Death and gave our approximate position when we had been confronted by Orochimaru posing as a GR ninja. I listed the attacks that had been made, what I could remember of what he said to us, and how we had responded. I mentioned that Naruto and I had been knocked out and continued with the second-hand information we had been given by Sasuke. I wanted to skim over the fight with the Sound team, but didn't because they had admitted to being sent by Orochimaru and anything that tied him to the village hidden in the Sound was important. I told him about the power of the curse mark and what we'd done at the tower to try and mitigate it. That got a raised eyebrow. I even mentioned sensing Orochimaru posing as one of the Junin at the preliminaries, how he had left after Sasuke had fought and what Kakashi-sensei had asked and my theory about how he had known to ask. I have Junin that can't give reports that detailed, Dad said with a wry quirk to his lips when I'd finished. I shrugged. Can you tell me anything? Not really, he replied. We don't really have much information. We know he was here, and that he was after the Uchiha, but the Anbu sent after him haven't returned. Dead, hovered unsaid. Anbu didn't skip reporting in. Does Mum know that we got attacked? I asked, picking at my blankets. It hadn't seemed like she had and I hadn't wanted to bring it up. No, she doesn't, Dad said levelly. We've been keeping his presence here quiet. It's the kind of thing that causes panic, or sets people out looking for revenge. The fewer people who know. There would be quite a few people in Konoha that had something against Orochimaru. More who despised traitors on principle. I see, I said. Team 10 and Team 8 know. We told them. I shrugged. I don't know who they've told. Dad sighed. It can't be helped. But for now, try not to bring it up, alright? I nodded. Well, If Mum asked, I could always just say Dad told me not to tell. Then he could deal with her. Wicked imp, he muttered, a knowing glint in his eye. I gave him my best innocent face. He snorted, clearly not buying it. Then his face shifted into seriousness again. How have you been holding up? I don't know, I said quietly, looking away. A lifetime's worth of, thou shalt not kill, warring with a decade of life as the daughter of a ninja clan, logical, they threatened to kill us against. Did I really have to? Everyone keeps looking at me. Martial arts films. You're probably the first of your friends to take this step, Dad said. They don't understand yet and they're looking to you to see how you handle it. I know. It's just, I struggled to put words to it. How am I supposed to feel about it? With everything else that happened, it's such a small thing. You feel about it however you feel about it, he said gently. No one can tell you that you're right or wrong to feel that way. But you can't change what happened either, it's too late for that now. I nodded. Was it the right choice? I asked. He considered it. I can't tell you that. The life of a ninja is a hard one, with hard decisions that have to be made. We might not always make the right choices, but we learn from them regardless. And sometimes, the choice we must make isn't one we like, or sometimes none of the options are happy ones. Only you can tell if the decision you made was the right one. I fidgeted with the sheets, my fingers twisting around and around. I wish they hadn't attacked us, I confessed. But, I don't feel guilty. I don't regret it. They were going to kill us. I couldn't regret it, and if that made me a bad person then so be it. It frightened me, just a little, that I could be so callous. It's something that every ninja has to face at one point or another, Dad said, and there was no judgment in his voice. I leant backwards and sighed. It might not have been the most conventionally rurring conversation, but it helped. The silence reigned for a moment before I spoke again. You better go home or Mum will start to worry about you too. He quirked a smile and pressed a kiss to my forehead. We can't be having that, he agreed. Sleep tight. Kakashi sensei showed up the next morning while I was gathering my things to sign out. He didn't even say anything, just lounged about reading his book, like it was a perfect coincidence we were even in the same place. I might have even bought it too, if, we hadn't been in my hospital room. Sensei? I asked uncertainly. He looked at me over the top of his book. Did you want something? I rolled my eyes. Did you come here for a reason? Ma, 2 of my cute little students are in the hospital. I had to come and see how they were doing. He smiled, I crinkling happily. You've been to see Sasuke. How is he? I asked eagerly, picking up on the implication. Well, they're not letting visitors in to see him, he explained. That didn't, necessarily, mean he hadn't been there. There wasn't that much hospital security could do to keep a Junin out, as evidenced by Dad seeing me outside of normal visiting hours. I looked at him expectantly. He's fine, Sensei said, caving. We were just planning a little training trip for the next month. Trip, I repeated, suddenly feeling a lot less enthusiastic. Wait, wasn't this when Sasuke had been taught Chidori? To where? Discover more. App Store marketing. Writing forum access. Mobile fanfiction app. Oh, not far. Just past the outskirts, probably. This isn't really training you want to be doing in the middle of the village. And it'd keep Sasuke isolated. Just in case. I bit my lip. Somehow, removing Sasuke from all social contact except Kakashi-sensei for a whole month didn't seem like a good idea to me. Whereabouts? His one eye narrowed. Why all the questions? So I can find you, I admitted. It looked like he was about to deny me, so I rushed onwards. I can bring food, supplies, and if Sasuke needs a sparring partner, I'm plenty fast when I want to be. He blinked. Fast? How did you? He cut himself off. I stammered. Since Lee exposed the weakness of Gaara's sand defense in regards to speed, then I figured you were going to train Sasuke to take advantage of that, or ways to slow it down more, I guess. Was I wrong? No, you weren't wrong. He sighed. I'll let you know before we leave. I nodded, satisfied. Even if he didn't, there were only so many places they could go, I'd find them eventually. Close to Konoha, large enough to camp and train, away from the main routes of travel, I was already crossing out large sections of the map in my head. Cool, I said, picking up the vase of flowers from the table beside the bed. Honeysuckle, baby's breath and gladiolus, probably picked from our front garden as Mum ran out the door. Sweetness, happiness and strength of character. And there was a sprig of snapdragon nestled snugly in the middle because it was my favorite flower, even though, or maybe because, it meant deception. Come on, it was called snapdragon. How cool was that? Sensei followed me out to the reception desk, looking for all the world like we just happened to be walking in the same direction. We heard Naruto before we saw him. Sorry, no visitors. Ah, are you kidding me? Naruto shouted. I cringed. Geez, he was loud. Those are the rules, the receptionist chirped, not sounding very sorry at all. Kakashi-sensei sighed. Naruto, this is a hospital, keep it down. Naruto spun around to face us. Kakashi-sensei, Shikako, you're okay. The exclamation marks practically bounced off the tiled floor. Yup, I said, slipping past him to hand my release forms to the receptionist. Good thing I'd already filled them out. As of now, I'm officially out of hospital. That's great. I was coming to visit you guys, but they wouldn't let me in. He scowled at the receptionist, who just smiled pleasantly back. Sasuke's in the part of the hospital where they don't let visitors, I explained, bumping shoulders with him lightly. Can you just imagine how many of his fangirls would have shown up? Naruto sniggered, probably thinking about how annoyed Sasuke would be at being unable to escape them. Anyway, Kakashi-sensei, I have a favor to ask you. Stop right there, Sensei said, holding up his hands. I already know what you're going to ask. So I've been looking for someone that can oversee your training for the final rounds. Hold on. Naruto protested immediately. Why can't you train me, Sensei? I have other matters to handle. I don't have time to deal with you, Naruto. I felt like slapping my face. Seriously, Sensei, did you really think that was a good thing to say? Hey, you're going to train Sasuke, aren't you, Kakashi-sensei? There wasn't just annoyance in his voice now, there was the barest traces of hurt. Now, don't complain. Listen, I found you an even better teacher than me. Sensei smiled cheerfully. Well, who is it? Naruto pouted, crossing his arms. It is I, Ebisu, a clanless ninja who made special Junin at 22 years of age solely on his mastery of basic and generalized ninja skills. Without a defining and powerful technique or jutsu set, he'd probably never make the jump to full Junin, but he was a crafty and tricky ninja who used high levels of strategy to employ his abilities to their fullest level. I wondered why he and Kakashi-sensei had chosen to meet at the hospital. Then I realized that by the time you made special Junin, you probably realized that letting Sensei set a meeting place was a bad idea. Because a meeting place implied a meeting time, and Sensei wasn't very good at those. Easier just to hunt him down. You, Naruto shouted, pointing at him. They knew each other. Wait, Ebisu was currently teaching Konohamaru. Naruto and Konohamaru did know each other, so it was likely that the two of them had run into each other before. And Naruto didn't always make great first impressions. Such insolence. Ebisu sniffed. You're kidding me. Of all the guys you could have picked, you picked this guy to train me. He's weaker than I am. Okay. I think I needed to step in. I'd never really considered myself much of a peacemaker, but around Naruto I sometimes felt the urge. Just to stop him from yelling so much. Nay, Naruto, I began. Ebisu-sensei was promoted to special junin on the merits of his teaching skills and strategizing ability alone. That's right, Kakashi-sensei echoed. He's a private tutor who only trains the elite. Frankly, he's a better teacher than I am. So he's pretty smart, I continued, sort of ignoring sensei's interjection. He'd be able to help you come up with a plan for fighting Neji. Naruto's surly look faded, just a little. Why can't you help me? He argued. I can, of course, I said, soothingly. But if one plan is good, then two plans are better, right? And I'm going to be helping Shikamaru and Ino and Sasuke, too. So you want someone who can help you more often, right? He nodded, barely, right. So he was almost convinced. Now to set him a task to do so he'd forget he wanted to argue more. Maybe you should talk to Hinata about how Neji fights, if you're going to be trying to avenge her. I'm sure she'd be willing to talk to you. Even if she lost, they have the same fighting style, the Hyuga Jiyuken. She might have some advice and I'm sure Ebisu-sensei can help you decide what questions you need to ask her. Ebisu pushed his glees up his nose. A very intelligent plan, young Nara, he said. Knowing one's enemy is paramount for success. Naruto mostly ignored him. Yeah, he said quietly. I should talk to her. His fist clenched. She didn't deserve that. I plucked the snapdragon from my bouquet and held them out to him. Here, you should give her these. She's probably going to be in the hospital for a while, so it'd be nice if she had some flowers. He took them gingerly, very much a pre-teen boy faced with flowers. Right, let's go. He marched off into the corridors, flowers held out at arm's length in front of him. I stared after him, bemused. Do you even know what room she's in? Ebisu groaned. Naruto froze, then turned around with a sheepish look on his face. I sighed. Ask the receptionist. Now, don't forget to use your shadow clones during training and I'll see you for lunch tomorrow. At Ichiraku. Naruto nodded enthusiastically. I waved goodbye, noting vaguely that sensei had already vanished, and stepped out of the hospital, basking in the fresh air and sunshine. I twirled my snapdragon through my fingers before tucking it neatly into the loops of my braid. It was a lovely day. I meandered slowly back home. Even though I hadn't made the finals, that didn't mean I was going to slack off on my training, because the day of the third exam was also the day of the invasion. Knowing that, I probably had more motivation to train than my peers. Training and certification. Physical training would have to wait until my ribs were well and truly healed, but there were other things I could do. There was no one home when I got there, and I spent most of the morning cleaning my ninja gear and restocking my mission pack anyway. It was unlikely that I'd get a mission before the finals, but I technically wasn't involved in them, so it was possible. It made me feel better to have it ready, anyway. At lunchtime, I cast an uninspired eye around the kitchen and decided to go out for lunch. Maybe I'd go see Sakura and hope I caught her on her lunch break. I headed towards the Haruno household, but as I was pinging the Yamanaka flower shop I was nearly tackled and dragged inside. You've got to help me, Ino said, grabbing me by the shoulders. I'm going to get crushed out there. My head wobbled back and forth as she shook me. I clamped my hands down on her wrists to stop her. Ino, did you see Tamari? I can't fight like that. What am I going to do? She babbled. I took a moment to look at her. Ino looked terrible, drawn and frazzled. I'm going to get killed. I didn't bother asking why she was at the flower shop instead of training, if she was so worried. The Yamanaka flower shop was practically Ino's second home and it had a very calming atmosphere inside with the numerous flowers everywhere. It was a good place to think and there was always more work to be done inside. Ino, I repeated. This time she listened. Calm down. You've got a month to work things out. Have you talked to your dad? She blinked and breathed in deeply. No, not yet. What could I say? Sorry. I'm going to embarrass all. How about, Dad, I made it to the third exam, could you please help me Tron? I suggested wryly. She flushed. It was a logical first step. Inoichi was still the master of their family style, even if he didn't teach her any new techniques, which I doubted he would, frankly. Like our family style, there was only so fast you could progress. I wasn't sure of the details, clan secrets, but some techniques took their toll on the user. I could imagine that throwing your spirit around was one of them. Is he here? I asked. Yeah, out in the greenhouses, Ino replied, twisting her hands together. Go and talk to him. I'll watch the counter, I said, making shooing motions at her. It wouldn't be the first time I'd worked here as the cashier. Then we'll get together and write up a profile for Tamari and see what we know about her. Right. She breathed deeply. Good plan. See, I knew you could help me. I rolled my eyes. Whatever, Ino. I fluttered about the shop, taking care of the flowers, chatting to customers and cheerfully ringing up purchases for about half an hour before Ino came back out, her dad following behind her. I wasn't really surprised by the long wait, since Inoichi was the master at getting you to spill. Ino probably would have cracked and talked to him before too long even without my prompting. Shikako, he greeted. I'm sorry to hear you didn't make it to the finals. I shrugged, philosophically. Luck of the draw. If I'd come up against nearly anyone but Shikamaru, I probably would have. Nearly anyone, because I would have forfeited twice as fast if I'd drawn Gaara. That's the spirit, he said. Now, you two girls go and get some lunch. I'll take over here. Ino was much more cheerful, nearly approaching her usual buoyant attitude, as we swung by to pick up Sakura, who was predictably ecstatic to hear that Ino had made the finals. Wow, Ino, Sakura said admiringly as we found a restaurant and ordered lunch. Rookies so rarely get nominated for the exams. For you to make it to the finals is statistically, well. Ino laughed uneasily, flicking her hair out of her face with a graceful wrist. Yes, well, I got lucky in the prelims and didn't have to fight. That just means I really have to show what I can do in the finals. Exactly, I agreed, pulling out a sheet of paper and a pen. Tamari of the Desert, I wrote at the top. Ino and I started by filling in everything we knew or had observed about her and how she fought. Sakura might not have been present for those fights, but she was a well of knowledge about chakra and ninjutsu types and was able to draw conclusions from the information we had gathered. All right, I said, taking a break from writing to eat. So she's a long-range fighter and pretty well covered against projectiles. She's no slouch up close, either, and getting in close is a challenge in and of itself. We didn't really get to see much, but she fought smart, so I wouldn't count on her being easy to fool. So I'm pretty much screwed, Ino concluded. Sakura donked her over the head. Don't be like that. Sakura's right, I chided. You can't give up before you begin. Now, Tamari mostly used her fan, Asuna Tessin, to whip up her wind jutsu. So her attack would probably be weaker without it, though she probably wouldn't be helpless. Her defense was based on deflecting wind currents, so I wonder how it would handle explosive notes. Explosions aren't the answer to everything, Ino and Sakura chorused, giggling. I poked my tongue at them. You guys make me out to be so much worse than I really am. Wind jutsu are usually divided into either cutting and slicing attacks or brute force shoving attacks, Sakura said, voice taking a lecturing quality. They can range from incredibly precise to wide-range devastating attacks. It's strong against lightning-based attacks, but weak towards fire, which it tends to enhance. Thank you, Sakura-sensei, I said. She flushed and slapped me lightly on the shoulder. The attacks we saw her use were quite large and Tessin leaned more towards wide-ranging than incredibly precise, so dodging them is going to be an issue, I mused. There's also the fact that she was able to fly on it, so pinning her down is going to be difficult. Ino sighed, then examined her hands. Does anyone know what the arena for the finals is going to be like? Inside, outside, what have I got to work with? I tapped the pen against my lips. It's in the stadium, isn't it? We could go and have a look, but they might change it between now and then. That's better than nothing, Ino said. After lunch. Sorry, Sakura said, looking down. I've got CL this afternoon. Yeah, I asked. How's that going? We chattered away until she had to leave, then picked up our stuff and headed towards the stadium. The offices were locked, but it was easy enough to get into the arena itself. It'd probably be more securely guarded closer to the date, but for now we got in just fine. Well, Ino said, looking around. From inside, the stadium looked huge. The stark concrete walls were intimidating and tall, almost seeming to make the place claustrophobic. The ground was scuffed, dry dirt and packed down hard, and there were scraggly bushes and trees around the circumference. Not very much cover, I said, inspecting the trees. They might do for a bit, but it wouldn't be a viable long-term strategy. Ino said vaguely. I wondered if she was already starting to plan. Apart from her initial panic, Ino was nothing to sneeze at in an opponent. In any other year, she would have been the top kunoichi, if not the rookie of the year. Well, maybe not against Neji, but the point still stood. On our way back to the flower shop we ran into Asuma-sensei. Oh, Ino, there you are. I've been looking for you, he said. Asuma-sensei. She blinked. Oh, right, we've been brainstorming. She fluttered the paper with Temari's details on it at him. Good girl. I was going to ask you what training you needed for the finals. He puffed on his cigarette, eyes flickering to me. That's my cue to leave, I said wryly. By rights, with my teammates and brother in the finals, I probably shouldn't stick around to hear her training plans. I'll catch you around, Ino. Thanks for your help, she said sincerely. I think I was a little freaked out this morning. I laughed. Something like that,